This weekend, thousands of cyclists will come together in Scotland to take part in Sir Chris Hoy's Tour de Four ride, aimed at changing perceptions around stage 4 cancer. The six-time Olympic gold medalist founded the challenge to raise funds for UK charities after he was diagnosed with terminal prostate cancer. The ride has already surpassed its target of £1 million before the event has even got underway. Among those taking part this weekend, former Sky News presenter Dermot Murnaghan, who himself was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. I spoke to both him and Sir Chris earlier, and I started by asking Dermot how he was doing after his chemotherapy came to an end back in July.
Oh, feeling better and better every day. You know, once the stuff clears your system, and on to the next stage or phase, I hope.
Yeah. Can you talk to us about being diagnosed last year? Because I know both of you coming out publicly is to raise awareness about prostate cancer and the importance in getting checked. And Dermot, you've been in this very studio talking to...
Too many times.
Yeah, talking to public figures like Sir Chris Hoy and the experts about prostate cancer and the importance of checking. But there's a difference between hearing a message and really listening, right?
There is indeed, yeah. And I would have heard it many, many, many times, about men of a certain age, men who are in certain categories, if there's a history of prostate cancer in their family. As I say, if they hit a certain age, if they're in a certain ethnic group, then you should go and get checked. And I always had that in my mind. But I always felt fine. I'm sure Chris will say the same. I felt fine. I thought, yeah, other things come along, life, work, family, dinners, whatever. And then, lo and behold, before I got checked, I was, properly checked because I was ill and taken into hospital.
And like you said, you were fit and healthy. I mean, I used to see you click-clacking on your cleats and your Lycra through the newsroom. You were cycling every day. You were really fit and healthy and active. And Sir Chris Hoy, I remember the public reaction to your diagnosis was, oh, my word, if this can happen to Sir Chris Hoy, the peak of physical fitness, this could literally happen to any one of us.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a history of prostate cancer in my family. So my grandpa had it, my dad's had it. So I was aware of it. But the general advice is once you hit 50, that's the benchmark, and be aware of symptoms. And just keep an eye out. It's a slow-moving disease. It's for older men, and that's not the case. That can be for many people, but for me, there was no symptoms. There were no warnings. I was 47 when I was diagnosed, and by that point, it had spread into my bones. So by that stage, it's incurable. So the message has to be that first of all, as Dermot has already said, you need to know your risk. So you can go on to you can Google prostate cancer risk checker. There's 3 questions in there about your ethnicity, family history, and your age. And from that, you can be high, medium, or low risk. If you're high risk, you go to your GP and you ask them for a blood test. And it's that simple.
So, Chris, when you heard about Dermot's diagnosis, I mean, many people will remember you coming out publicly talking about your diagnosis. And, I remember seeing you talking about it on social media, Dermot, both of you wanting to come out to, doing what we're doing right now, raising awareness. So, Chris, when you saw Dermot on his statement on social media, you wanted to pick up the phone. Yes,
well, it was through a mutual friend got in touch and told me about Dermot's bad news. And so, I felt compelled to get in touch, and because I'd already been through that initial shock and horror of the diagnosis, I'd been through chemotherapy, and so I was kind of a few months ahead of him, if you like, or maybe even a year ahead. So I had some practical, hopefully some practical advice to pass on to him, and things that I'd learned, the things that some doctors hadn't told me about at the time. And I think the biggest thing that I had to do after the diagnosis was to find my own hope, because all hope is taken away in the space of one sentence. You're given this news and it drops like a bombshell, and you have to then go away and find a way to lick your wounds, to come back from it, and to recognize that you have to find your own hope, and you have to kind of forge a way ahead. And therefore, I'd spoken to a couple of people that were in a similar situation, and their advice helped me. So I guess it's like passing on the baton of information and letting people know, and letting Dermot know at the time, but letting other people know now that you're not alone. And I think you feel so alone in those moments when you're given the news, but actually, sadly, it's very common. So yeah, it's part of the reason why we've set up our charity ride, the Tour de Four, which is taking place this Sunday in Glasgow. It's raising money for cancer charities across the UK. We've raised £1.4 million already. The target was 1 million, and we've already hit 1.4. But the purpose of it wasn't just to raise money; it was to change perceptions of stage 4 cancer and to let people see that actually, yes, it's not the news you would ever want to receive, but together as a community, we can show that you can still have a fulfilling and a wonderful life, even in the midst of this terrible diagnosis.
What Chris offered me then and throughout this journey, if we're going to call it that, was first of all that practical advice. It really helps, but also, more broadly for anyone who's, the vast majority of people who aren't in this situation, is that kind of mental space you have to develop, you have to inhabit, you have to nurture it, and you have to keep it going. It's all in his book. I'm going to big it up now. All That Matters. See, I remembered the name. I'll take my commission later, Chris. It's just a wonderful from the heart. And as I say, I treated it as a manual when I was going through my own chemotherapy. I thought, OK, so this might happen. The professionals tell you that, but I thought, this happened to Chris. I wonder if it'll happen to me. And Chris, gave me advice about when the old cold cap to keep your barnet, all kinds of things. Yeah. So it's a great read.
Well, Chris, we were talking about the fact that, we're talking about screening, and I know, Dermot, you've spoken about the fact that, you were fit and healthy. You also went for regular checkups and tests on your health as part of looking after your well-being. You were on it, so to speak. But this slipped through the net, and there is no formal screening programme for prostate cancer, despite it being the second most common cause of cancer death in males here in the UK, accounting for 14% of all cancer deaths in men. You have to ask, as you said, Dermot, rather than be offered like other cancers. This needs to change, doesn't it, Sir Chris Hoy?
Yes, it absolutely does. And I've already had a meeting with the Scottish Government, with John Swinney, to see what we can do in Scotland, and I'm hoping that there will be a similar conversation with the British government. It just seems like we have to do something about it, even if it's a simple matter of sending out a text message or a letter to every man when they hit their 45th birthday to say, assess your risk, know your risk, speak to your GP about this, get some advice, because I think it's not a lack of awareness about prostate cancer. It's just a feeling that, well, it won't happen to me, or if it does, it's for decades down the line. It's in the future, and I'll keep an eye out for it. And it's something which is for tomorrow. It's not for today. But actually, you can have peace of mind by getting checked, and an annual check. Get a blood test once a year to keep an eye on it, and then it doesn't have to be. You don't have to be getting that kind of conversation with your doctor that I had and that Dermot's had.
Dermot, last time you were in the studio, you threw your scripts in the air and you were out of here. But I feel like we should give you the final sign-off from this interview because, again, this is such a personal issue. And, like so many people do, they'll be watching this tonight, hearing this message. But what do you want to tell them about actually listening and acting on what you and Chris are saying? Well,
specifically when it comes to prostate, it can happen to any man. All I can do is endorse what Chris is saying, what so many others are saying, is that why do we not have some form of proactive PSA testing? All I can guess is that it's about a cost-benefit analysis. Of course, cost comes into things that, because of the PSA tests, too many men perhaps may go into treatment that don't require it, and there is that factor involved in prostate cancer. But look at the benefit to catching someone like Chris or me earlier on in the diagnosis. I mean, you know, these drugs, these treatments, they cost a lot. You know, we have to look at that. We have to be aware, and that, I'm told, is perhaps one of the main reasons why the NHS
Chris
doesn't
Hoy is
offer
taking
that.
on the Scottish Government. I know your contacts book, Dermot. You could pick up the phone and sort of, you know, you made the pitch there.
Listen, I know that the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, is onto it, and you know there are you know far wiser people than us looking into that very thing, the cost benefits that you know have to be examined by any government that's a bit strapped for cash. And Wes Streeting says that he will be led by the evidence. So all I say is let's get the evidence to Wes Streeting. Let's do this. It is achievable. And there are other tests coming down the line, which hopefully will get cheaper, which are more accurate.
Well, Dermot, it's been great to see you. Thank you so much for coming in. It's a Chris Hoy as well. Good luck on Sunday. Dermot, I know you're heading up there on Saturday to
Yeah, come on. You know, who is he?
I mean, look at this.
Have you ever ridden a bike?
The rivalry is on. Good luck with the Tour de Force this weekend. Thanks so much.